Adize is an African American who had lived in New Orleans for over 20 years, and she had tried to forget the village superstitions her grandmother once whispered to her as a child. Her grandmother once told her not to ever receive a gift from the dead. It is only now she understands what her grandmother meant. There are debts that transcend currency, debts that follow you across oceans. Some debts are paid in ways that money could never cover. One Tuesday evening, a migraine struck Adize so hard she could barely see. A coworker mentioned a late-night market on Rampart Street, where an old woman sold herbs that actually worked. The market stretched deeper than it should have, past the food vendors, past the jewelry sellers, into a section that felt older. The stall sat at the very end, draped in faded cloth. Behind the table sat an old woman, grinding herbs in a stone mortar. When she looked up, Adize froze. The woman's face was identical to her grandmother's. Her grandmother had died in Africa 6 months earlier. "You have the headache that won't leave," the woman said in a perfect African dialect, a dialect this woman should have no knowledge of. The woman wrapped dried leaves in brown paper, her movements deliberate and slow. "Steep this in hot water. Drink it before you sleep tonight," she said to Adize, handing her the herbs. Adize reached for her wallet, but the woman raised one wrinkled hand and said, "No, no, you can pay me later." Something in those words made Adize's skin prickle, but the pain behind her eyes was unbearable. She took the herbs and left. She never asked the price. That night, the tea worked. Adize slept deeper than she had in months, but when she woke up and looked in the bathroom mirror, her reflection looked older, not dramatically, just enough to notice. A few more lines around her eyes, gray strands that weren't there yesterday. She told herself it was stress, the long shifts, poor lighting, but each morning the mirror showed someone older. By day 3, she looked 45 instead of 32. And then came the dreams. Every night, Adize walked through her grandmother's village, the compound where she'd spent childhood summers. She could smell the pepper soup cooking, hear the goats bleating, feel the red dust between her toes. But in the dreams, everyone stared at her. The villagers pointed and whispered one phrase, over and over. "She came to collect, she came to collect." On the 7th night, Adize awoke at 3 a.m. to find something on her nightstand that hadn't been there before. A photograph, old and faded. It showed her grandmother as a young woman, standing in front of the very same market stall, the same faded cloth, the same clay pots, and behind the stall, serving her grandmother, was the exact same old woman, looking exactly the same, from 60 years ago. Adize's hands shook as she turned the photograph over. On the back, written in her grandmother's handwriting, "I'm sorry, I couldn't pay the debt. Now you must." That's when Adize understood. The debt wasn't money. It was never money. The payment was time. 3 weeks after visiting the market, Adize's co-workers reported her missing. Her apartment was empty, belongings untouched, no sign of struggle. But if you visit that late-night market on Rampart Street, if you walk all the way to the back where the old stalls hide in shadow, you might see her there, grinding herbs in a stone mortar, looking decades older than she should. And if you ask her for something to cure what ails you, she'll wrap it carefully, she'll hand it over with a smile, and she'll tell you in her perfect dialect, "You can pay me later." Some debts travel through bloodlines, some markets never close, and some payments are collected across generations. The question is, what debts are you carrying that you don't even know about? This is Mystique Stories, where ancient debts meet modern lives. If this tale chills you, there are more waiting in the shadows. Subscribe to hear more, and remember, always ask the price before you accept the gift.